searching in the sun for another.
When Glen Campbell passed away in 2017, his passing marked the end of an era. But for his family, it was only the beginning of another chapter. They found a secret vault, and the content left them stunned, revealing sides of Glen they had never seen before. Join us as we explore the findings. These discoveries could alter your perception of Glen Campbell. Early life, career, and death. Glen Travis Campbell was born on April 22, 1936, in Delight, Arkansas. He was the seventh of 12 children in a family of sharecroppers. Life in rural Arkansas was simple but demanding. His parents worked the land, and Glen spent much of his childhood helping in the fields. Music was an early escape. He showed interest in instruments at a very young age, especially the guitar. By the age of 6, he had already begun learning basic chords and practicing whenever possible. Campbell's early musical experience came from performing with his uncle's band. The group specialized in Western swing, a popular style in the region at the time. He traveled locally with them, gaining experience by performing in front of audiences. These early years shaped his sense of rhythm, melody, and stage presence. Eventually, he formed his group, Glen Campbell and the Western Wranglers. He played small clubs and honed his skills as a lead guitarist and singer. In the late 1950s, Campbell moved to Los Angeles. He entered the world of session musicians, becoming part of the renowned group of studio musicians, later known as the Wrecking Crew. Campbell played guitar on records for major artists, including Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and the Beach Boys. His skill on the instrument and versatility made him highly sought after in the recording industry. In 1964, Campbell joined the Beach Boys as a touring member. Brian Wilson, the band's leader, stepped down from touring, and Campbell filled the gap. This experience introduced him to national audiences and connected him with the larger music industry. He returned to Los Angeles and continued working as a session musician while developing his solo career. Campbell's solo career began in the mid to late 1960s. His first major hit was Gentle on My Mind in 1967. The song won multiple Grammy Awards and established him as a significant figure in both country and pop music. Soon after, he released By the Time I Get to Phoenix and Wichita Lineman. Both songs were widely praised and further solidified his reputation. These hits blended country storytelling with pop accessibility, giving him crossover appeal. In addition to his recording career, Campbell hosted a television variety show, The Glen Campbell Good Time Hour, which ran from 1969 to 1972. The show featured Campbell performing his hits and collaborating with other prominent musicians and entertainers. It expanded his audience beyond music fans and made him a household name. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, he released successful albums and singles. Songs like Rhinestone Cowboy and Southern Nights became iconic. He toured extensively, performing across the United States and internationally. His music appealed to a wide audience, combining technical skill on the guitar with an emotional, accessible voice. Campbell's personal life was not without challenges. He struggled with substance abuse for many years, which he later addressed publicly. Despite these difficulties, he remained active in his career, continuing to record and perform. He married 4 times and had 8 children, and his family often supported him through periods of illness and professional demands. In 2011, something happened that shook his entire fan base and family. Campbell was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The diagnosis marked a significant turning point in his life. Despite the progression of the illness, he continued to perform and didn't give up on music. In 2012, he embarked on a farewell tour, carefully designed to allow him to share his music with audiences while managing his health. The tour covered major cities across the United States, and each performance demonstrated his enduring talent and dedication to his music. Glen Campbell sadly passed away on August 8, 2017, at the age of 81. His death followed years of battling Alzheimer's disease, which he faced with resilience and dignity. Campbell was remembered not only for his musical achievements, but also for the way he handled his illness publicly, raising awareness for the disease and inspiring many through his perseverance. Campbell released his final studio album, Adios, shortly before his death. The album served as a reflection of his life and career, featuring recordings that showcased his signature guitar work and vocal abilities. His music remained influential and widely admired. Following his passing, his legacy was celebrated by fans, colleagues, and family. His recordings, television appearances, and live performances continued to reach new audiences, ensuring that his influence on music and culture remained strong. Tributes poured in from across the country and around the world, emphasizing the impact of his work in both country and pop music. After his death, attention turned to his personal belongings and archives. Among them was a private vault, rarely mentioned during his lifetime. The contents of this vault were unknown to the public and even to much of his family. Questions arose about what a man of such talent and a successful career might have kept hidden. Could it be unreleased music, personal letters, or items connected to moments in his life that were never shared? The mystery lingered, hinting at a side of Glen Campbell that few had ever seen. What the vault contained would soon shock those closest to him, revealing aspects of his life that had remained private until then. The vault. After Glen Campbell died on August 8, 2017, people began talking about his estate. Some called it a vault, though it was not an actual vault. The word meant his will and the papers he left behind. From the start, it was clear that what was inside could almost tear his family apart. Many believed he had a fortune of $50 million. The truth was very different. When the estate was valued, it totaled just over $400,000. This consisted of a few small bank accounts and a small share in a partnership. There was almost nothing else. Years of touring costs, medical bills, and personal debts had taken their toll. Family members had expected far more. The difference between what they hoped for and what they found shocked them. Many could not understand how someone so famous could leave so little. Even with little money, the will was detailed. Campbell had worked with lawyers to make sure every instruction was clear and legal. He wrote down what should happen to each account, each share, and even personal items. It showed he had thought carefully about the future. Yet those choices would bring trouble. Some family members felt left out. Others wondered if the will was fair. The papers began to cause tension before anyone even knew all the details. Lawyers met with the family to explain the estate, its value, and his wishes. Feelings ran high. Even small items became things to argue over. The fame and public attention only added to the pressure. The will carried weight far beyond its dollar value. It showed what mattered to him, but also held surprises. No one could be sure how it would change the family. That uncertainty left them uneasy. Some relatives began recalling small moments from the past, wondering if they had missed signs of what was to come. They thought back to conversations, times when Campbell seemed distant or when he avoided talking about money. Now those moments felt like clues. It led some people to question whether he had been preparing for this outcome for years. No one knew for sure, and that mystery added to the tension. Friends of the family noticed the strain. Publicly, everyone tried to appear united, but behind closed doors, the air was heavy with suspicion. People whispered about who might benefit most from the will, even before it was fully read. Every delay in the legal process made the wait feel longer, and each day without answers gave rise to new doubts. The vault had become more than a set of papers. It was now a symbol of the unknown, holding truths that could either bring peace or break bonds forever. Some hoped it would end with fairness and closure. Others feared it would have the opposite effect. The only thing everyone agreed on was that once the vault was fully revealed, nothing in the family would be the same again. Inheritance distribution. When Glen Campbell died in August of 2017, his music legacy was unquestionable. He had been a country star with a career that spanned decades. His voice and guitar had made him a star, winning fans in places far from his small-town roots. Yet behind the scenes, another story was unfolding. It was not about the songs or the concerts. It was about the documents he had signed years earlier. Those papers, written with care in 2006, would decide exactly who received what after his death. The will was 13 pages long. Every page was carefully prepared with legal advice. It was not something thrown together at the last minute. Glen had thought about this, and he had made choices that he wanted to be followed. Those choices would surprise some of the people closest to him. They would also raise questions that could not be answered easily. One of the most striking details in the will was the decision to leave out 3 of his 8 children. His daughter Kelly Campbell and his sons William Campbell and Wesley Campbell were named in the document not to be included. This meant they would receive nothing from his estate. The will gave no reason for this choice. It did not offer an explanation or a personal note. It was a plain legal statement that left them out completely. The rest of his estate was divided among his remaining 5 children and his wife, Kim Campbell, who was named as the executor. As executor, she would have the legal authority to carry out the instructions in the will. This meant she would handle every asset, every account, and every step of the process. Her role gave her control over how the estate was managed, as long as she followed the written directions. The will included both financial and personal items. The financial part was straightforward. Bank accounts, any remaining royalties, and other small investments would be shared among those named. The personal items were different. They were to be given to specific people. These included items with deep sentimental value, such as instruments, stage costumes, and family keepsakes. The will clarified that Glen had thought about who should receive these things. For many families, a will like this would be carried out quietly. In the Campbell family, the opposite happened. The decision to leave out 3 children caused deep hurt. It was not only about money, it was about feeling excluded. To be named in a parent's will as having no inheritance can feel personal, even if the reasons are unknown. For Kelly, William, and Wesley, that single sentence in the will was a public statement that they would not be part of this final chapter. Kim Campbell's role as executor soon became a point of tension. Some of the children who were left out questioned her influence over their father in his final years. They suggested she had isolated him from certain family members. They also questioned how the estate had been managed before and after his death. These were serious claims, though no court ruling confirmed them as fact. Still, the accusations deepened the divide in the family. The small size of the estate also added to the conflict. Public records showed the estate was worth just over $400,000. This was far less than what was expected from a star of Glen's level. Years of medical costs, personal spending, and the realities of the music business had reduced the amount left behind. For some, this made the will even harder to accept. They were not only excluded, but there was also little to fight for. Even for those included in the will, the distribution process was not smooth. Royalties from music can be complex, arriving in small payments over time. Deciding how to share them required careful tracking, disputes over what counted as a royalty, and who was entitled to what took time to settle. The personal items also brought disagreement. One person's treasured memory can be another's symbol of what was lost. The will had set out clear instructions, yet the impact of those instructions was messy. Families rarely see legal documents as just paperwork. Every sentence can carry emotional weight. Every exclusion can be seen as a judgment. For Glen's family, the will was not just a plan for dividing assets, it was a testament to their love and care. It was a final statement of who he saw as part of his legacy. Public attention made the situation even harder. Media outlets reported on the decision to disinherit 3 children, repeating their names in headlines. The small value of the estate became another topic of discussion. Strangers now knew the private details of who was in and who was out. This kind of exposure can magnify feelings of embarrassment, betrayal, or defensiveness. As executor, Kim Campbell was required to follow the will exactly. This meant she could not change who received an inheritance, even if she wanted to. Her job was to carry out Glen's wishes as written. Still, her position placed her at the center of the family's disagreements. Any decision she made, even one required by law, could be seen as taking sides. The children who were included in the study faced their challenges. Accepting an inheritance when siblings are excluded can lead to feelings of guilt or tension. Some may feel they need to defend the parents' decision. Others may try to share informally, though such gestures rarely repair deeper family wounds. In the Campbell case, the legal lines were clear, but the personal ones were not. Months after Glen's passing, the estate process was still unfolding. Disputes had slowed progress. Every decision required paperwork, legal review, and sometimes court approval. What might have been settled in months could stretch into years. Each delay kept the wounds open. Each public filing served as a reminder of the divide. They will also raise broader questions about how public figures manage their legacies. Some fans wondered why Glen excluded 3 of his children without explanation. Others believed it was his right to decide exactly how his estate should be handled. In legal terms, he was within his rights. In emotional terms, the debate would likely continue within the family for a long time. The story of Glen Campbell's will is not just about numbers on a page. It is about relationships, trust, and the way final decisions can echo after a person is gone. The money and items he left were modest compared to his fame, yet their impact was large. For some, the will was a sign of his thoughtfulness and desire for order. For others, it was a painful reminder of distance and division. Over time, the legal side will be resolved. The accounts will be closed, the items distributed, and the records filed away. What will remain are the feelings those decisions created. Families can heal from such divisions, but it takes effort from everyone involved. In the Campbell family, that process may take far longer than the paperwork. The legal battle. Before Glen Campbell's death, he had signed 2 key wills, one in 2001 and a later one in 2006. Both documents excluded 3 of his 8 children, his daughter Kelly and his sons William, also known as Travis, and Wesley. Those who were included were his 5 other children, Deborah, who is sometimes called Debbie, Ashley, Dylan, Shannon, Nicholas, and his wife of 34 years, Kimberly, commonly known as Kim Campbell, who was named executor. The wills clearly stated who would receive nothing without explanation. Kim publicly defended the will. She said Glen made these decisions long before his Alzheimer's diagnosis, and that the document was a reflection of his wishes when he was fully capable. She emphasized that she had not influenced those decisions and wanted only to carry out his instructions with respect and care. Still, the exclusion stung. The 3 children who had been cut out of the will filed a legal challenge in 2018. They argued that Glen lacked the mental capacity to make such decisions and that he had been too sick and mentally unable to make legal decisions. A Tennessee probate judge, David Randy Kennedy, granted them standing to contest the will, a significant step that allows the case to move forward. This was just one piece of a broader family tension that had existed for years. In 2015, when Glen was moved to assisted living, two of his oldest children had worked to pass the Campbell-Falk Act, a Tennessee law ensuring visitation rights for families of those with Alzheimer's. Their actions suggested they feared they were being cut off from their father. It was almost like they saw it coming. The legal proceedings introduced further complications to the estate division. Glen's estate had initially been rumored to be worth tens of millions. Public records revealed a far lower number, which was approximately $410,000 in assets, excluding any future music royalties. One large asset was a 50% partnership stake in AZPB Limited Partnership. Kim took steps to legally request reimbursement for medical, living, and caregiving expenses from this estate. As the case proceeded, court filings from some family members requested an accounting of estate funds and questioned control of royalty income. Kelly and Wesley, and others, asked the court to examine accounts and payments made under Glen's and Kim's joint control, noting some royalty payments had gone into accounts outside the main estate. Throughout the legal battle, emotions ran high. Family members appeared in courtrooms. Some sat across from each other, faces strained, while lawyers handled the filings and motions. The proceedings drew media attention, prompting debate among fans and legal observers. Discussions ranged from respect for Glen's rights to questions about fairness and legacy. The tipping point came in November of 2018, when the three who had challenged the will withdrew their challenge. They offered no public explanation. Kim said she was relieved. She stated she hoped to move on, focusing on her husband's memory, his music, and her advocacy for Alzheimer's awareness. With the will upheld, the estate's distribution moved forward. Kim continued as executor, managing financial disbursements, royalty rights, and personal items. Legal experts noted that even after formal resolution, the emotional wounds did not go away overnight. Disinheritance, especially among siblings, can cast a long shadow. A few months after the legal battle ended, some context came to light. Glen's choices mirrored those he had made when he signed the initial 2001 will, long before his illness. This suggested consistency, not a reaction to external influence. That strengthened Kim's defense. The exclusions were deliberate. For Kim, carrying the role of executor remained challenging. She had to distribute assets according to Glen's instructions, even when some beneficiaries felt left out. She also had to manage public expectations and scrutiny, while organizing tributes, reissues, and funds for Alzheimer's causes. Emotionally, some beneficiaries felt guilty. Small inheritances felt weighty when others were excluded. Some were said to have quietly shared parts of what they received. Others withdrew. Family dynamics shifted. Holidays and gatherings became more complex, and it is said they all see themselves in a new light. The media continued to revisit the story. Some articles focused on Glen's fame and the surprise of the modest estate. Others discussed the conflict as a cautionary tale about unclear communication and final wishes. Legal experts quoted the case to illustrate how even carefully prepared wills can fail to prevent conflict, if not discussed openly. Despite it all, the music continued. Tribute concerts, re-released albums, and Glen's elevated Hall of Fame status helped fans remember a man of extraordinary talent. Kim remained a visible advocate for Alzheimer's awareness. She often framed the legal battle as painful but private, redirecting public attention toward his music and mission. The estate's formal administration ended. Royalties continued to flow, although they were under legal scrutiny for accuracy. Personal items were distributed as specified in the will. Legal closure was achieved. Still, many family members described ongoing feuds. Trust takes years to resolve. In legal terms, the will issued in 2006 remains the final word. Glen's right to decide who he included and who he excluded was upheld. Probate closed. Kim executed her duties, but this story did not end there. It became a lesson about the importance of explaining decisions, even when private. It demonstrated how what is backed by the law can create numerous issues. Legacy is not just about inheritance. It is about memory, relationships, and healing. A will may carry one man's last wishes, but for the family of the deceased, it's so much more. Life after his death. After Glen Campbell's death, the world lost more than a country music legend. His family lost a husband, a father, and the heart of their home. In the months that followed, they were left with two difficult tasks: learning how to live without him, and finding ways to keep his music and spirit alive. Kim Campbell, his wife of more than 3 decades, stepped into a public role she had never imagined for herself. She became a voice for Alzheimer's awareness, speaking about the challenges of caring for someone with the disease and advocating for research. She partnered with Alzheimer's organizations to push for clinical advancements, and her advocacy brought comfort to other families who were walking the same path. Through her work, Kim helped expand Glen's legacy beyond music, adding a chapter about compassion and public service. For Glen's children, the loss was deeply personal, yet many of them found healing in the same way their father had lived, through music. His daughter, Ashley Campbell, who had been a part of his final tour, began releasing her songs and albums. Her track, Remembering, written about her father, was included on the soundtrack for I'll Be Me, the documentary that followed Glen during his last tour. She later toured internationally, playing at major country music festivals and weaving her father's songs into her own sets. For Ashley, those performances were more than concerts. They were a way to keep her father close.
That your door is always open and your path is free to walk.
Debbie Campbell, Glen's eldest daughter, also continued to perform. She had shared stages with her father in the 1990s, and now she carried his music forward in her shows. Debbie often told audiences about growing up with a father whose voice could fill both the smallest rooms and the largest arenas. Her tributes were both personal and public, honoring him not just as a performer, but as a dad. Friends from across the music industry also found ways to honor Glen's memory. Songwriter Jimmy Webb, whose work with Glen produced classics like Wichita Lineman and By the Time I Get to Phoenix, called him an extraordinary genius, whose talent would be remembered forever. Dolly Parton described him as one of the greatest voices of all time. Brian Wilson, Ringo Starr, Steve Martin, and Kenny Rogers all shared their memories, painting a picture of a man whose kindness and humor matched his musical gifts. Charlie Daniels spoke of Glen's skill as a session musician, a member of the legendary Wrecking Crew in the 1960s. He recalled how Glen could play almost any instrument and bring warmth to every collaboration. To his friends, Glen was more than a star. He was a musician's musician, respected by everyone who worked with him. The years after Glen's passing were not without difficulties. A legal dispute over his will made headlines, as some of his older children were excluded from the inheritance. That chapter closed in late 2018, when the challenge was withdrawn. Kim Campbell expressed relief and a wish to move forward. With that burden lifted, the family could focus once again on honoring Glen through music and memory. Tribute concerts became a recurring way to celebrate him. Musicians who had played with Glen over the decades reunited to perform his songs, while younger artists covered his hits for audiences who had never had the chance to see him live. Radio stations ran special programs on his birthday, and television networks re-aired interviews and performances, ensuring his voice stayed in the public ear. Glen's final studio album, Adios, released just 2 months before his death, became a powerful part of his legacy. Recorded while he was in the later stages of Alzheimer's, the album showed both his determination and his family's devotion. His children joined him on several tracks, helping him through the recording process line by line when needed. That record stands as a testament to love, perseverance, and the bond between a father and his family. Ashley often said that performing her father's songs felt like a conversation with him. She shared stories about the last tour, when even as his memory faded, his connection to music never left. She told fans how he would still smile when a familiar chord rang out, and how his fingers could find their way on the guitar without hesitation. Kim continued to speak publicly about Alzheimer's. She launched initiatives aimed at supporting caregivers and raising funds for research. She wrote about her journey as a spouse, watching the disease slowly take her husband, hoping her experience might help others prepare for the emotional and practical challenges ahead. The family also preserved Glen's personal artifacts, guitars, stage outfits, and handwritten lyrics, with the hope of one day sharing them in an exhibition or museum display. These items, they believed, could tell his story to future generations who might know the songs but not the man behind them. Friends and collaborators never stopped speaking about Glen's warmth. Vince Gill remembered how Glen always made people feel at ease, whether backstage, at a concert, or at a casual gathering. Sheryl Crow said that despite all his success, Glen never carried himself with an ego. To her, he was a reminder that great talent could exist alongside humility. For fans, Glen's music remained a comfort. Songs like Gentle on My Mind and Rhinestone Cowboy continued to play on radio stations and streaming platforms, their lyrics carrying the same mix of strength and vulnerability that had drawn people to him for decades. His work remained timeless, untouched by changing trends. As the years passed, the Campbell family learned to carry his absence with them, turning grief into a quieter form of gratitude. They found strength in the memories he left behind. Today, Glen Campbell's name still means something in country music and beyond, and thanks to his family and the legacy he left behind, his name will keep on living for a very long time. What do you think of Glen Campbell's legacy? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more inspiring content like this. Before you go, kindly watch the other videos on your screen. Thanks for watching.